All right. Oh, I gotta turn it down. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, wait. I'm setting it at 6. That's like my good number. That was worth every penny. That was so delicious. I'm very happy. The mozzarella sticks, perfectly fried. I'm such a little American treatler. I can't help it. However, I do have indigestion again. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, that was a good neck crack. Oh, man, I am like so upset tummy arc right now. I'm back. Oh, welcome back. I was just chilling out a little bit. Thank you for telling me shit was going down. I kind of felt like shit was about to go down because I feel like everything has been happening like at the night. But the question is, what? Maybe Kinzo comes back. That'd be crazy. He just starts freaking dragging everybody. I had a very nice YouTube and eat session, so it was all very good for me. I just gotta have some of these Tums, or else my tummy is gonna be very upset. We can't have that. Not for a second. Oh god, I picked up on the mic. Ugh. And how's my water doing? I should have got more water before I started the stream again, but I'll worry about it later. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsui had warned him to avoid being alone whenever possible. And, oh, okay. And just now, Nanjo had admonished him, saying it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Kanon accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Ava and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Oh, they're gonna be dead. They're gonna be dead. Genji knocked on the door. Ava-sama. They just had a close conversation. They're the two that are close. Those who remain, they're gonna be literally torn apart. Oh my gosh, they're literally gonna be torn apart. Ava-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, dinner has been prepared. He waited for a short while for them to come out, but there was no response. Genji-sama, look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. A Western envelope had been inserted under it. What are the Japanese envelopes supposed to look like? Japanese envelope. Oh, they're vertical. And wrapped in thread. Oh, and I think that's right. I think in Japanese society, like the different color of thread is supposed to have like different meaning. No, I don't know. Nope, that's definitely not true. I think I'm thinking about the color of ink they use. Yeah. A Western envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it'd be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So since this might be a private note meant for Ava and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. This Western envelope was one of Kinzo's, the same kind as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. Ooh, I wonder if they're going to be super curious. There could be no mistake. It is one of the master's envelopes. Or it could be. Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read aloud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a louder voice. Ava-sama! Ava-sama! It is Genji. Are you there? Please answer, Ava-sama. But there was no response from the inside. Oh my god. Sometimes when the servants went to call guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that it was time to come out and leave the guest be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Ava's name. However, there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door, held his breath, and listened for any sounds coming inside. I hear something that sounds like television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief, and careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It had been sealed with a deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on the sealing wax had come from the Yoshiramiya family's head ring. Ava-sama! Ava-sama! Please answer! Are you still in your room? But there was still no answer. There was a chance those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Ava had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out the bundle of keys, which contained the key that would open the guest room. Genji-sama? Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they... So, I don't even know if they're going to really be able to open the door, because I thought it was chained shut. I didn't think it was locked shut. I mean, maybe they might be able to get it open enough that they can stick in one of their hands and, like, undo it. Oh, hey, Kakach? You didn't like the mod. Yeah, I took a look at it. I just decided, like, it was... I don't really think it was, like, adding... I didn't think it was going to add a lot. The only thing I think I could have got... I think it said it was, like, new animations. But to be honest, I was a little afraid to look a little more into it, because I was worried I might spoil the game for myself. But I looked at the art and I thought I was fine with this art, and I didn't want the Japanese voice acting to like interrupt my reading. Even though I probably could just turn it off, but whatever. Why would the mod page have spoilers? I don't know. I feel like I'm super bad at like spoiling stuff for myself, and I'm trying my best to like chill out. I got like actual spoiler problems going on. They would sometimes unlock the door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guest hadn't given permission and might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided, if the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western envelopes of the Ashiramiya family head. After last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else... Eva-sama! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room. After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was a sound of the door unlocking, and after slowly turning the knob, he slowly started opening the door. They're gonna be dead. They're gonna be so freaking dead, or they're gonna be in the middle of having sex. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. Lights seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. Oh yeah, I was right. The chain is stopping it. You might be able to like get in there and like stick your hand in and like undo the chain that way. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside, so it proved that they were in the room. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV. All these things made it clear they were in the room, but there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the sound. They're just gonna take this fucker down. They're kicking down this door. But there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do now? As a part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open a door with a chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill had already rushed upon their backs. Cannon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. I will call Madam in return. Cannon, cut the chain. Yes. As Cannon hurried away to get a cutting tool, Genji called him to a stop. Wait, Cannon. Return to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. You must not act alone. Yes, certainly. It looked like Cannon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness, which is why Genji's gonna go alone by himself, which really makes you think. He didn't care what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want anything to happen to Kinzo. Or wait, not the Kinzo, to Cannon, blah blah blah. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food on the serving cart, and Nanjo was waiting for Genji, apparently wanting to show him a move he'd finally thought up that might turn the tables on him. But Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong. Oh, what has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow this match to be suspended for the time being. Cannon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Cannon. I will go over to Madam. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me. Hold on. But what has happened, Cannon-san? Kumasawa said almost the exact same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation, and chased after Cannon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Cannon went to a storage room and locked through the tools packed in toolboxes and hanging all over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain. I don't think they need one that big. Usually those door chains aren't too tough. What are you looking for? Let me help too. We're cutting a door chain. Where was that large wire cutter? A door chain? Why would you do something like that? The chain to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even they should be inside. They didn't answer when we called to them. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she realized that this was an urgent situation. That one will probably do the trick. Cannon took down a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. You'll be missing the CGs though, by the way. If that's fine with you. I mean, I think I'm fine. I did see, when I was looking at it at Reddit, I saw somebody else say there was like another, like edition of it that there's like another mod that people liked a little more. I forget what it was called. I think it was like maybe like I forget, like the Umineko project or something might have been called. I forget. And I saw some people say they liked that more, and I don't know. I was kind of split down the middle. That's not a mod. It's the whole PS3 game made in PC. Oh, okay. Not official. Kenna remembered once being warned that this dangerous tool could easily cut through one of your fingers. Most people play it with Project. Oh, okay. Cannon took that and rushed up the stairs. He already knew instinctively he should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or perhaps it was already. Plus, I must admit, I'm just a little lazy and didn't feel like doing it. I must admit, I was just feeling a little lazy. Please wait, Cannon-san. Ha. Hurry. Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. It's also free in a way. When Cannon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked up at the door, he let out an ah, struck speechless. Oh fuck. What is this? Eep. So if you haven't bought the Answers arc yet, you could switch over to it. Yeah, I haven't bought the Answers arc yet because I didn't know if I was gonna like this or not. But I'll buy the Answers arc once I'm done with it. Well, it sounds like I wouldn't be supporting the devs if I bought the project. Oh, I'll have to think about it. I'll think about it. Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. There was no surprise, because right there... It's on the door? I would at least recommend playing with the original sprites. A big part of later scenes get a lot of value from facial expressions. You could try it out for some scenes right now. I'll give it a try for a bit, sure. I think it does it. Wait, let me double check. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wonder what this magic symbol's about. There was another eerie shape drawn with a blood-like paint. However, it would be odd to call this a magic circle, because unlike what... Yeah. Because unlike what most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. However, those strange characters filling in the gaps, which weren't from the alphabet, were the same kind as the ones on that magic circle in the shutter. But the thing that Canon struck speechless wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It was that something like this hadn't been here a short while ago. Yeah, there wasn't enough time to draw the circle. First, he had taken a trip back to the kitchen. Unless somebody just went in with a spray paint and just went shh, like on a stencil or something. After that, he'd gone to the storage room to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together and it could have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn. Almost like the door itself was bleeding. Several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripping down, getting longer and longer. Eep, eek. They have a... Kumasawa's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Canon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice Sama. Eek. It's the work of Beatrice Sama. How horrid. How horrid. Ellipses! Exclamation point. Canon gulped, then readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter... Just cut the damn chain, boyo! He then pressed with all his strength, managing to cut through the chain far more easily than he'd anticipated. The cut chain fell into 2 separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth. Canon-san, there's an envelope by your feet. Isn't that the master's? It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope at the bottom of the door. And that sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Cannon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room. Check inside the room! But he eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. They're gonna be torn apart. They're literally gonna be physically torn apart. It's gonna look so freaking sick. Cannon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave his fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears were realized, the police would want to investigate his room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this whole time. Eva-sama? Eva was lying face up in the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on? Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Cannon and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short "Eek!" again when she saw Eva like that. Ava's shoes had been the first part of her that Cannon had seen, so the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Ava's head shifted into his line of sight, Cannon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something had been placed. Something was growing there. No. Right in the center of her forehead. Was it an old-fashioned... Ooh, I love that stinger. I love that. Was it an old-fashioned knife? That or some weapon like it was sticking out. Well, now we know for 100% certainty it's Beatrice. At the base of where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the right side, on the other side, bright red. Dude, who puts a freaking knife through her skull? That's insane. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Ava was dead, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. Both eyes were opened wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned onto them. But the only mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Where's Hideyoshi? Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. Unless it was Hideyoshi. I don't think it could have been Hideyoshi, right? There's no way. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Ava was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. Oh god. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of the shower. The bathroom was the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep them from flying out. The waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down the bathtub, Hideyoshi completely naked with both eyes open and pointing right at Cannon. Just like Ava, with a demon-like design A weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Ava's had been. But the sight of him... This is so bad. Their only adult left is freaking Natsui. She's the only one left. And it's all the kids. Yeah, that's so bad. Just then, they heard Natsuhi's voice coming from the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Again with this graffiti. About this letter. What does it say inside? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. As Natsui said that, she picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room itself where she found Ava, dead. Ava-san! Madam, Hideyoshi-sama is here too. This is truly atrocious. Cannon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to be. Yes, ma'am. Cannon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. What's gonna happen on the third day? Those who remain shall praise my noble name. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap on. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. They were apart for just a little bit, and that was all it took, huh? There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made the horrible contrast. Dr. Nanjo, I understand. No signs of post-mortem divinity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. It would seem that an hour or so has passed since they were killed. But even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull? I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Cannon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon. But then he decided it'd be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, so he left it alone. A close inspection of the base showed it didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade-shaped. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handed spear, something like with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Some people might have likened it to a thick ice pick rather than a short spear. At any rate, after looking at this scene, no further words were needed to describe what sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for, nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Natsui, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, then that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she'd had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuhi couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. At any rate, we can't let George couldn't see this room. Seal this room with all haste. Yes, we mustn't let him see. But George sounds saw his parents in this brutal state. Let him see his parents. That's so wrong. He's 23. Let him see his dead parents. But he could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George, even before he came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsuhi, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlor, they felt a sense of foreboding. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father! Mother! What is this? Another magic circle? Ellipses. Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Canon-kun, what's all this about? Butler-sama. Canon didn't have to say anything. Oh my gosh. God, this music is great. This is like something out of Crypt of the Necro Dancer. Canon didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Uwag! Who did this? I'll kill you! I'll kill you! George-kun, please hang in there. Natsuhi touched George's shoulder with her hand. He violently shook her off. George fell over beside him. Man, this guy has really been thrown through the ringer. I feel so bad for George. Everybody he's ever loved is dead. Except, like, his cousins. How many people are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Half of them are gone. That's so crazy. George fell over beside Ava and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist, over and over again. George, Nissan, hang in there. Battler-sama. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway. He was covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping without restraint. Horrible. That's horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day. And on the same day, even his own mom and dad were killed. Isn't that too harsh? Of course, it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is. But to Battler, those left alone by the death of the others are far more worthy than pity. Everyone here has now lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than anyone else. Battler. I wonder if he... Okay, so just out of curiosity. Okay. I know, everyone dies sooner or later. If you're a human, you'll eventually have to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. But still, Shouldn't that day be far in the future for Aniki? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. It's too horrible. That bastard. That bastard. Doesn't he have even a speck of human sympathy in him? Ah. Ugh. Battler, don't cry. Don't cry. Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears. Yeah, damn it, I won't cry anymore. Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again. Ah. Well, wait. It's all useless. The witches got me backed into a corner. I'm always on the defensive. And that's useless. It's all useless. I'll spin the chessboard around. That bastard probably thinks we'll be running scared like sheep until tomorrow before we try anything. But guess what? I'll spin it around. That bastard can't escape from this island until tomorrow either. We won't be hiding away, pissing ourselves. That bastard will. I'll expose you. You'll see. By tomorrow? No, screw tomorrow. Tonight. Before tonight's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything... I love how big their fingers are. And leave everything as it is until the police come. No objections, I take it? Natsui announced it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. But yeah, you're the adult in the room. If anyone had the right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he'd shed enough tears. George nodded slightly, still facing away from the others. Dude, has he even gone to see his father yet? He's just going to go see his mom. Still facing away from the others. When he stood up, everyone else agreed too. Natsui still hadn't opened that Western envelope with the family head that she'd picked up. But now that they decided to leave this room, she decided to unseal it in the parlor where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked out onto the hallway to head back to the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place, or maybe said something strange. Ugh! Stinks. Now, did you notice it too, Maria? Seriously, what's that smell? It's awful. When everyone sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible burnt smell drifting through the hallway. One that none of them had smelled until then. I will go quickly to the kitchen. I'm sure I've turned the flame off. After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been using the burner in the kitchen, suspected that her own slip-up had caused it. Or that brimstone is like an alchemical thing. Kennen, go with Kumasawa. Do not let her be alone. Yes. After nodding at Genji's order, Kennen followed her after her. He wasn't running, but as he followed her, he tried to search for the cause of the smell in other directions as well. Go inside Mr. Kinzo's lab and see what's going on in there. Ugh! Stinks. Ugh! It truly is a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, that doesn't mean we can just open a window for ventilation. Natsui was reluctant to open the windows in a situation where self-defense was so important. Let us run the fan. I do not believe there will be any need to open the windows. George Anaki, is it okay if I talk to you? Why are his glasses so cloudy? Maybe he's like me and he just never cleans his glasses. He's like me, super blind and can never see when his own glasses are dirty. If it's about finding the culprit, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had managed to climb out of the abyss of sorrow. All that filled his chest now was the quiet flame of hatred towards the culprit who had stolen the lives of the ones he loved and his beloved parents. The chain for this room was set. From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive it couldn't have been opened from the outside. In other words, this was a perfect closed room. It does seem to be the case. In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have sneaked the shutter's key out of the servant room. Or maybe they had a duplicate key. I can't imagine many ways they could have done it. But this chain is different. Among generally using locking techniques, a chain is the simplest one to create a closed room with. Only a chain will block everyone from coming from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. So does this mean the culprit couldn't have gone in or out through the door? That's interesting. Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss over how to enter a room without using the door. Back then, we were all losing our cool, wondering how grandfather had disappeared from his room. The receipt Aunt Ava stuck in the door on a whim proved the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Natsuhi was the only person to enter or exit during that same time, she was under suspicion. Aunt Ava proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsuhi might have thrown grandfather out the window and left the door by herself. But this door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window might also have been locked from the inside. Had also been locked from the inside, and the bodies had been inside the room. This time it really had been, without exaggeration, a true closed room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 cases have occurred. All 3 times, the door has been the point of interest. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about that, this really can't be called a closed room. The next door was sealed by the receipt. However, Aunt Natsuhi entered that room, so if grandfather had left through the window or been thrown out, she would have been able to lock the window before escaping. Or like my theory, grandfather could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you really can't call this one a closed room either. But this one. And now we have the door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked. It was a perfect closed room. The first hadn't been a closed room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a closed room because Aunt Natsuhi could be suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This was a perfect closed room because the other door chain formed a seal that blocked everyone equally well. In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? With some method from outside the room? Good point. Even though the chain makes it impossible to open it wide for a person to fit through, you could still open it a small crack. Did the culprit knock on the door to make them peer out before attacking them? Wait, am I missing something? Yeah, you are. If Aunt Ava's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But since she was on the bed at the back of the room, and Uncle Hideyoshi, and it was even in the bathroom. Oh shit. I'm just comparing these as interesting. If Aunt Ava's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But she was on the bed at the back of the room, and Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking from the crack in the door, you couldn't even see them, and you couldn't reach them with your hands either. Damn it, it's all useless, and I don't have a clue. Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria. I want to see her creepy ass smile. Yes. Ugh. That's so creepy. I think I'm gonna move back to the original, to the new art. I don't know. I think I don't know. I think I just prefer this. Ugh. Satisfied? What do you mean satisfied? Battler, since you didn't suspect any of your relatives, you made a wish saying you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right? Well, Beatrice granted that wish. Just as you asked, she did something that was completely impossible for a human to make you believe in the witch. And now you're complaining? How selfish. Ouch. Yeah, she deserves that. Fuck her. I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly on the head with my fist. Sure, thanks for granting that wish. That just now was to thank you, and also to teach you to stop laughing when it's inappropriate. More importantly, tell me. There was another mysterious scribble on the door to Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Was that another magic circle? That one had a really memorable and characteristic design, so I'd hoped you'd at least know what it was. Ouch. I don't know, which is why I'm letting you take the credit. Quit whining and explain. You sure are violent, Battler. I won't tell you if you're too mean, get it? Ouch. Ugh, say it. Stop hitting me. That's the first magic circle of the moon. What does it mean? What is the magic circle's effect? What does the Hebrew writing mean? The words are from the Old Testament, Psalms 107, verse 16. For he has broken the gates of brass and cuts through the bars of iron. The magic circle has two effects. First, it can open a door regardless of which method has been used to lock it. That sure is convenient. So you're saying they're trying to make it look like they're a witch because this closed room has a door that can't be opened without relying on magic? And the other effect? When you're blocked by unopenable doors in all directions, it opens a door. By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you a solution you hadn't even thought of until then. Generally speaking, you receive the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration and intuition. Hehehe. Beatrice is trying to provoke you, since there's no way lowly humans like Battler could figure out how this door was opened. Ouch. Okay, good work, so shut up. Sounds great, I'll accept this challenge from the witch. But Maria-chan, things like witches and demons don't exist in the world. Bro still believes that? After all this shit? Someone killed mother and father. I don't know whether that was someone I know or not. But either way, it was definitely a human. Yeah, but how? How did they reach those two through the crack in the door? It couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide. At any rate, I can hardly stand this stench. What in the world could it be? I feel like it's brimstone, right? Cannon and Kumasawa, who had gone on ahead, realized the smell wasn't coming from the kitchen even before they arrived there. The basement? I didn't even think there would be a basement. On an island like this? A basement? Maybe like a wine cellar. An even thicker wave of stench arriving up from the stairs leading to the basement, which they passed on their way to the kitchen. There's gotta be some secret shit going on in this house that we don't know about yet. There has to be. There's 100% shit. Like secret rooms and fucking paths and tunnels and shit. Has to be, 100%. Do you have any theories about this closed room? Do you think it was magic? The only other explanation is that it's like the Red Keep in Game of Thrones, and that like every room has like secret passages and tunnels. I mean, it wouldn't be like surprising if the rooms had like secret tunnels we didn't know about. Oh, you know what? That's what it has to be, right? So, this is a crack theory, so maybe I'm crazy, but if you notice the gun that Natsuhi has, it's a Winchester repeater. And the Winchester family was very known for its connections to the occult. And the Winchester Mansion, which is like a super famous mansion here in the United States, it was like totally filled with these secret rooms. So the connection between the Winchester like family mansion with all the secret rooms and the fact that Natsui has a Winchester rifle, I think that's interesting. We'll see. I've moved from 80% magic to 20% real shit. I'm 50-50 now. The boiler room. I wonder if there's something wrong with the boiler again. Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. Nice theory. Oh, thank you. The mansion's boiler was old and in poor condition. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled the boiler belching out a stench like this before. Slam. What was that sound? The thing they heard from the basement was definitely the sound of a door closing. Kumasawa had phrased it as a question, but she already knew it couldn't be anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound that her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. That is so bad. This poor old lady's having such a rough day. Bot response. This is hilarious. Okay. After all, at that very moment, no one else could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together around Eva and Hideyoshi's room. So who caused the sound of a door closing just now? Ellipses. Cannon-san. After taking a second to sort out the situation, Cannon ran down towards the basement. Since they'd heard the sound of a door closing just now, and there was no sign of anyone coming up the stairs. The person who closed the door had to be inside the boiler room now. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Cannon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. But Cannon was a servant, so he knew. Oh, shit. But Cannon was a servant, so he knew there was 2 entrances to the boiler room. One that opened to the mansion and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Cannon did, but she couldn't let him go alone. This poor lady has lumbago. If the thing in the boiler room is the culprit, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder, then there was no matter how Cannon confronted him, he wouldn't be a match. Of course, with this argument, even if Kurosawa had joined them, it wouldn't change anything. At any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Cannon go alone, and she rushed down the stairs. It's either Kinzo or nobody. Or like something's trying to pull them apart. At that time, what if... Do we eat... I don't even know for certain. Those who remain. Do these murders don't even have anything to do with that? Wow. This is tricky as shit right now. This is a great mystery. I love this. At that time, Cannon was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic damp heat tormented him. It had always been an unpleasantly smelly and hot place. And on top of that, the room was full of that horrible stench, which made Cannon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt that this room was the source. Where's that sound coming from my mic? Here, it should be better. Sorry about that. Okay. In that case, Cannon should be searching for where the smell was coming from. Bro grabs a hatchet? However, Cannon kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed a hatchet from a tool shelf and just off to the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he wanted a hatchet. He wanted to grab a weapon, any weapon. Why? Ellipses. Cannon gazed into darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. There, he answered. In roulette, you bet on a number or the colors red or black, vying for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like black and red offer only similarly a low payoff. The words coming from Cannon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. Run away, bro! It's the freaking butterflies! Run the fuck away. Run the fuck away. It was such a fantastical scene. Golden, sparkling butterflies that hid in the shadows all over the boiler room flapped their wings, twinkling beautifully, and gathered in the darkness, disappearing. Cannon continued speaking, directed his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. But, but as the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they, perhaps, probably, no, they would certainly laugh. But Cannon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest. However, if you bet on something with a lower probability, your payoff increases proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle. And called the astronomical payoff gained as a result magic. I have no interest in what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette, but you forgot something. You forgot that in roulette, there's a pocket that's neither black nor red. Roulette has a special pocket called zero, which means that the house takes everything in certain variants of the game. This means that all the coins on This means that all the coins bet on the table we've swept up just as though everyone has forfeit. That would suck. I gambled one time in my life. I played and lost $50 of slots. It was bad. It was embarrassing. And I tried to win it back playing video poker and I failed that too. I set my heart on just one thing. I decided that if Shannon were to be killed and I was alive, I'd sacrifice this life of mine and bring this roulette of yours to ruin. This isn't one of the master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I'm not furniture anymore. Yes! Let's fucking go. He's popping off. I'm the zero on your roulette. Cannon's face twisted with humiliation. Where's Kumasawa? She needs to hurry up. It was clear that his defiance against his own weakness was being ridiculed somehow. Cannon's brow creased even further, and a fierce expression that he'd never shown to anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slipped downward. It was clear that the emotion causing Cannon's hand to shake wasn't just anger. However, Cannon suppressed that emotion. I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends. Wait another 1,000 years in hell before your next summoner, Beatrice. When Cannon raised the hatchet and tried to dive into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at that courage as if it was vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless. Ooh. I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back. I'm very thirsty. I should have got water before I started my stream, but oh well. I'll be back in like a minute. I'm so freaking thirsty. Let me mute my mic. God, Sid got some water too. We're staying hydrated here tonight. That's everything. Absolutely hydrating tonight. We love it. All right. Next time I gotta put up my be right back screen. My bad. And what is this? Okay. Cannon, with his hatchet still held aloft, couldn't take another step after that. That scared the shit out of me. What the fuck? With a clang, the hatchet that he'd been grasping fell and rolled on the floor. And following that with a pair of thuds, Cannon's knees hit left then right. That hand, which looked like it was trying to catch the sky now that the hatchet had been dropped, gradually lowered, landing on his chest, and the other hand did the same. Oh shit. Cannon got freaking murked. Right there was a handle with a demonic design engraved on it. Jesus, Cannon's gonna fucking die too. That wasn't supposed. Everybody's freaking dying. And following that, with a pair of thuds, Cannon's knees hit left and right. As Cannon looked down at his chest, the same type of weapon that had stabbed into Eva and Hideyoshi's forehead was. Cannon was curled up in anguish, fresh blood dribbling from the corners of his mouth. It was makeup, too extreme for Cannon's white skin. Bro, so much for being the fucking zero on the roulette wheel. You were the fucking zero of this mansion. Freaking idiot. Around the scene, the glittering gold butterflies danced through the darkness, mesmerizing. It was a beautiful, beautiful dance, a funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for a single boy's self-sacrifice. Cannon had already prepared for his own death, but although he could do nothing but accept that death he had received, he attempted one last measure of resistance. As he grasped the handle of the weapon sinking to his chest with both hands and gritting his teeth with an acute, unearthly pain, he pulled it out. Ouch. For only a moment, a bright red spray gushed out. It made a very unpleasant bloop sound. It probably resembled the sound of Cannon's soul as it was sucked into the swamp of the dead. At least, say something mean. Cannon-san! Eek! Someone! Eek! Kumasawa screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Cannon was lying in a pool of blood. Kumasawa's heart was a complete mess. Ah, what a horrible fate. He wouldn't have been killed if I had been with him. Ah, what incredible luck. If I had been with him, I might have been killed too. As she screamed, her expression was filled with complete confusion, and all the muscles of her face were pulled up, almost as though she was smiling while crying. What? Okay. But no one could have made fun of an expression like this. What is it, Kumasawa? Answer me, Kumasawa. The first one to the door. The first one to the dash in was Natsui, holding the rifle. Battler and Genji dashed in after her. Normally, they probably would have started discussing the origin of the violent stench filling the boiler room, but after they saw Cannon, who was lying on the ground as if he were drowning in an ocean of his own blood, the stench wasn't important anymore. Cannon! Answer me! Genji, bring Dr. Nanjo here! Oh, he's still alive. Natsuhi realized that even though Cannon was on the verge of death, he was still conscious, so he sent Genji to get the doctor. Natsui, holding the rifle aloft, could face the darkness in the center of the boiler room and shouted, "Who was hiding over there? Come out quietly! If you don't come out of it from there, I'll shoot without mercy. We need light. Natsui, let's light them up." What the fuck? Jesus Christ. Battler, thinking quickly, took a large flashlight from the tool shelf alongside the door and used its light to cut through the darkness Natsui was glaring into. I wonder if I'm going to be able to make a choice in this game at some point. Like any kind of choice, or if it's just like pure visual novel the whole way through and I'm just like sitting and reading. I don't know what I would prefer, but the light only shone on mechanical-looking pipe and a door. The door had been left open a small crack, and it was obvious that someone had left there in a hurry. Natsui, where does that door go? Genji! Where does that door lead to? The courtyard. Like hell, I'd let you get away, you damn bastard! Ah! Battle let out a war cry as he slammed into the door. Oh, whoops, I just clicked out. Cool air from outside suddenly rushed in. There were some thin, rough stairs leading up. Battler ran up them, shouting, "Wait, Battler-kun! It's dangerous to be on your own right now." Natsui was also rushing up the stairs, chasing after Battler. They were in the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very... Is it closed? Is it a closed courtyard? Or... Okay, yeah, it is. Because it was surrounded on all sides, the air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sound of strong winds. There was only the gentle, sorrowful rain. As he ran through the cold and scattered raindrops, dashing up the stairs into the courtyard, Battler looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly were pretty much zero. Battler spun, looking all around. He turned again and again and again. He kept spinning until he was almost lost his sense of direction. Okay, he's just having a fun time, I guess. He prayed that he would see the culprit somewhere in the scenery. But there was no chance. All he saw as he spun around more and more was the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were two entrances into the courtyard, into the mansion from the courtyard. And neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard couldn't be entered from outside the mansion, the doors had been built without locks. That's kind of weird. He didn't know which one they had left, though, through. He had to give up. Battler pounded the walls with his fist, swearing. "Battler-kun, you mustn't run ahead by yourself." "Battler-kun?" Battler pressed his forehead against the wall, which he scratched at with his fingernails as he cried. He said, "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, and now Cannon-kun? You killed a full 6 people, and that wasn't enough, so you had to kill 3 more. Is he actually dead now? Not yet. He probably will be. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?" Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi were always kind of fun. I just met Cannon yesterday, but I'm sure I would have gotten along fine with him. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? You know when people die, they don't come back to life again, right? They aren't gonna quickly sprout up again like bamboo shoots. I feel like they will. If the prophecy's right. This shit's fucking crazy. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? Ah! This shit's hilarious. Battler was a boy who could understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart. So he cried. With all his strength. Natsuhi had always thought of Battler as a frank person. Was a little surprised to find he had this delicate side, and at the same time, she understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be. So she held him. It's all right. I will definitely protect you, George, Maria, and Jessica, as a mother and as a representative of the Ushiramiya family. Yeah. Ah! Just crashing out. Absolutely crashing out right now. Battler, after sobbing into Aunt Natsui's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile, as though he had been like that the whole time and tried to appear as though he cried more than enough already. Anyway, let's go back down for now. Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow the boat will arrive. After that happens, the police will come and everything should be brought to light. There's no way the culprit can escape this island, no matter how much they struggle. That's right. When the police come, when seagulls cry, the crime will be solved. That's the name of the game! That's the name of the game! I hope they keep doing that. But for some reason, Battler felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, typhoon! Sure. Oh. Can I go back? Can I go back? Okay. When the typhoon passes, surely the lively seagulls will return to the harbor again. I returned to the boiler room along with Aunt Natsuhi and told everyone weekly that we hadn't found anything. We heard that Dr. Nanjo and George Anaki had carried Cannon-kun to the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and a sink and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Bro, he needs blood. He needs, like, blood. Kumasawa-san and Jessica had accompanied them. Stains from Kanen-kun's blood remained on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood lost and the ruthless shape of the weapon that had fallen carelessly to the ground, I figured that Dr. Nanjo's treatment would probably be ended in vain. That weapon was doubtlessly the same type that had struck in Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. But wait, isn't the demonic design on the handle a little different? There seemed to be some small differences in that part. Still, as far as their overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. So now what I'm wondering... And I think another case that you could use to make this seem like this wasn't some sort of magical event, because it's just fun to analyze it from that perspective, I guess, is Those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. Whoops. And maybe killing Cannon just wasn't part of the plan. But they had to, like they didn't have a choice. Still, as far as their overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. Though it had seemed brutal, we'd left the weapons stuck into Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene. Bro, at this point, they're just gonna assume the whole Ushiramiya family just started killing everybody. So this was the perfect time we were able to have this was the first time we were able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. Do I get to see it? I want to see it. As we had expected, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick, or rather a thin stake. And it had a spiral shaped pattern, sort of like a drill. It looked like something that might have be driven into the hearts of human sacrifices in some demonic ritual. Including that handle, it was 25 centimeters long. Half of that was the stake-shaped part, which was stained with deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Kanen-kun's chest. But Aunt Natsui and the rest didn't even look at the weapon, and instead stood in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanating from. They must have dragged it out. Dragged out that thing which might have been burning in the furnace. It was still smoldering and kept sending out dense waves of that. Are they burning? Did they put one of the corpses in there? Please don't tell me it's a corpse. Oh, isn't that so fucked up that the whole family's just in the shed rotting? Ugh. Genji-san and Maria stared down at it. Aunt Natsui probably couldn't stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head, her back to it. Ugh! I thought nothing could surprise me after everything that's happened, but this is... ugh. I stood there for a while, moaning, with a rising urge to vomit. The true source of that unearthly stench. Oh, no, it is! Oh, no! Whose corpse? Oh my gosh. Why? The true source of that unearthly stench was a scorched corpse that had been cooking inside the incinerator. The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were hideously burned. That grotesque corpse was in a state where not the face, nor the age, nor even the gender could be guessed at. Kinzo? But when I thought about it calmly, I realized that a corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. It was grandfather, who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown. What the fuck? This is insane. I believe it is most likely the master. I agree. That he would pass away in such a state. It's heartrending. But is there any proof that this corpse really is grandfather? Isn't he tall? It's so burnt black you can't even tell what sex it is. Butler-kun, look at the feet. Aunt Natsui, with her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse's feet. Notice how there are 6 toes on each foot. What? Did he have polydactyly? Or not, I guess... It's not... Oh, it's... Oh, it is called polydactyly. I guess it's just in your feet. I have something called canthodactyly. Notice how... Ah, you're right. Just as Genshi-san had said, there were 6 toes on each foot. Each individual toe would look so normal in its line that I hadn't noticed. The master was born with 6 toes on both his feet. Consequently, the master was entrusted with the revival of the Ashiramiya family. I have heard that since long ago, cases of polydactyly were common in the Ashiramiya family. It's probably hereditary. Does anyone else have it? Polydactyly literally means many fingers. Yeah, I have canthodactyly, which means bent fingers. Because of a little mistake by God, when the person is born, one of their toes or fingers splits into 2, and the total number increases. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyly in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, it's just something people are born with. If I had 6 fingers, I wouldn't want to be losing them. You know how much shit you get done with an extra finger? I'd keep it. That is like perfect. You're missing out on so much potential there. You could type like so fast. Six fingers would be nice. They can be taken to the hospital and given surgery to make them normal. Even a child with polydactyly can be treated before they become aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. By the way, it seems that there's a possibility for this to occur in out of every 2,000 babies. So even though it's not usually seen, it isn't that rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me long ago. Something about how even Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku Jidai period, had 6 fingers on one hand. According to Natsui, among the many Ishiramiya family heads, the ones most praised for their wisdom all had polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he might become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that grandfather should be the one to restore the family because of the auspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather hadn't disliked his position as the family, as the head so much, this sixth toe probably would have been pretty lucky for him. Come to think of it, I've heard of some country where it's believed people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and revered. This is besides the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for corpses to be burned to hide its identity. But I guess that in grandfather's case, just toasting him wouldn't be enough. And that grandfather's body was not simply burnt. He just looks crazy. He's just totally freaking red. Like a little red, lots of red on the face. And then it's just gone. And grandfather's body was not simply burnt. It was like Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, and the thing that had been stabbed in the Kanen-kun's chest. One of those demon's ice picks was stuck into his forehead. The head's ring is not on his finger. So the letter last night was telling the truth. Father would probably be horribly disappointed. He never got to see Beatrice smile one more time. I hope he stays dead. Fuck him. He's such an asshole anyways. Natsui-san let her head droop and closed her eyes tightly. Congratulations. We have a new head of the family. Jessica, you are now the head of the family. Or it might be, technically, it might be you, Oshiramiya, Natsui. But I think it's actually supposed to be you. Oh wait, what does this say? I forgot they changed the text when they die. Burn the incinerator. With a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of his forehead. The old sorcerer's wish vanished before it could be granted. He always knew that this was one possible result of his risky gamble. And let's see what Ava says. Found on the bed of a guest room inside the mansion with a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of her forehead. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door while the chain is set. You can't see them, so you can't reach them. Hey, how could a human possibly kill them? This is so freaking crazy. This room also had become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It isn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator, since according to Genji, the strength of the flames hadn't been that strong. The body must have started burning a long time ago. So that stench could slowly creep out of the furnace and fill the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. The fat and burning and bubbling, ugh. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done. Oh my gosh. Grandfather had been brought out, killed, and burned, even though he had started out locked away in the closed room created by his auto lock. There's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The possibility that someone outside our group had stuck in and committed this crime was overwhelmingly high. And there was also a good chance that this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansion had been checked, But despite that, the culprit was able to strut around the mansion freely. Ooh, what is this track? Okay. Alright. I'm just letting her. I'm just listening to it for a while. Dun. Oh, it key change? Okay. Little slap bass? No, please, more slap bass. I'm begging. Does this crime confirm that a 19th person exists? Ooh, this is so wild. There's still that contradiction, since they're trying to tout their existence without ever showing themselves once. Along with Kairi-san's chessboard theory, I've been using this contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. By spinning the chessboard around once more, the very fact of this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists. Who's left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it's so bad. Everybody's dropping like flies. I knew on Friday, or no, Thursday when I streamed last. Like, I knew like that was when the game really was starting, because I think that's when I died. But now this just gets so real. As long as that 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us, if the culprit could get grandfather out through the door sealed by the receipt, if they could kill Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side of a door sealed by a chain, then they could possibly go so far as to create a fictional 19th person through strange tricks and devices. If we still want to believe that the culprit among the 18, the list of suspects has grown very short. The four of us kids, Aunt Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumasawa Bachan, and Dr. Nanjo. Of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, we can't be sure of that. This shit's so good. Just a second ago, we started doubting whether the corpse here was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we can think of the other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6, all of their faces horribly smashed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces for us to concern who they were, but that old bastard, for example, had lost his entire face, as though the whole thing had been neatly peeled off. We only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Did the culprit prepare a fake body beforehand and alter it to make it look like they died, even though they were actually hiding somewhere after committing the crime? A fake corpse would be weird. In that case, Goda. Or Kinzo. But I don't want to start suspecting dead people. It's too early to give into this 19th person. No, this witch. Maria-chan, you mustn't stare so fixedly anymore. Come on, Battler. Come on, Battler-kun too. I'm worried about Cannon's condition, and we mustn't remain in a place like this any longer than necessary. Let us return. Ugh. Maria didn't go out with everyone else, but remained in the boiler room. Bro, they're not gonna kill a child. They're not killing a child. They're not. They won't. Oh, never mind. Shannon is 16. They'll kill Shannon. Oh, wait. There we go. We love U-botting. Which is why I... Wait, why do I know. Okay. But the demon ice pick staring out of his forehead. You can suspect dead Goda. Just based off the fact that he was rude to Kennen one time. It was probably the sort of item an enthusiast couldn't bear to ignore. I tapped her on the head. Hey Maria, stop staring at the ice pick in your dead grandfather's head. What's Beatrice after? Is it all our lives? Beatrice will revive very soon. At that time, none shall be left alive. How can you laugh at something like that? Do you think you're the only one who's safe? Why don't you feel like you're in danger? Why aren't you scared? Beatrice made a promise. She said she's going to take me to the Golden Land. It's a wonderful place where you have no obligations. Everyone's always together and everyone is nice to everyone else. I'm looking forward to it. That time will come very soon now. Maybe, you know what, maybe Rosa was right beating the fuck out of this kid. Oh. Maybe Rosa was on to something. Because this child has no empathy at all. Just what kind of person is Maria? I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago when she was 3. She was once pure and obedient. A good kid. This new Maria 6 years later and the Maria I knew didn't seem to fit together. Just who is she, this witch who calls herself Maria? She loves Shadow the Hedgehog. To Maria, who obstinately believes in the witch, this series of unsolvable crimes is proof that the witch actually exists. Every time something occurs that would be difficult for human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us to not believe it in Beatrice. It must be an intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives, who once firmly denied the witch's existence, start acknowledging that witch's existence one by one. Is that why she's in high spirits? Maria, let me ask this one more time. You'll probably answer the same anyway, but I'll ask just once more. Yesterday, you were given a letter in the rose garden. Who gave it to you? Like I said, Beatrice. Battler still doesn't believe. Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria met with the 19th person, the witch. Was that really a 19th person? Or did one of the 18 just get her to say that? It seems less likely now. Considering everybody had a buddy with them. Like, everybody had a buddy with them this time. And Canon died. Well, is probably gonna die. It's, I don't know, this all just seems very... Unless there are secret passages, and Godo's faking his death. All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, and hasn't done anything suspicious, and she's 9. She's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and certainly isn't the 19th person, supposedly. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter we picked up in Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Aunt Natsui should still have it with her. Glass shatter, okay. This shit's going wild. What time is it? 8 o'clock? It's only been an hour? I tabbed out for a second unless I missed it. Oh, he died. Oh my god. How presumptuous of lowly furniture like that. I mean, Genji serving Kinzo directly is interesting. Nanjo has no connections to anybody. Natsui was buddied up. All these people were buddied up. Genji was the only person that was walking around alone at any point. I didn't think 4 people were gonna die. I thought at most it'd be like just the 2. Jeez. Even though Dr. Nanjo and the rest did all they could to heal him. Yeah, I don't think they could really get a blood transfusion or going or anything. Of course, there was very little that could be done on an island like this without medicine or proper facilities. However, Cannon wasn't the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only he could give us some kind of clue. However, at the time they carried Cannon away, it was already too late. My sincere apologies. Without proper facilities, there was nothing I could do about such a serious wound. Oh, that's perfectly understandable. Thank you for giving it your very best. Dr. Nanjo's shirt had been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine the devotion with which he had tried to save Cannon's life, up until the last second. Jessica was crouched in the corridor, crying softly. She had probably been taking care of Cannon Clint until the moment of his death. Oh my god, poor Jessica. At least she still has her mom. George Aniki tried to approach her with words of comfort, but when Jessica pushed him away, he stopped trying to force her to talk and left her alone. If only I hadn't let Cannon-san go alone. Oh. Do not let that bother you. If you had been with him, you probably would have been attacked as well. He foolishly rushed on ahead and paid for his mistake. How can you say it like that? Cannon-kun spotted the culprit and bravely stood up to them. If only Kumasawa-san had gone with him, the culprit might have hesitated and chosen to run away. Bro, she's like 80 and has lumbago. Emotion-filled words that I never thought I'd hear come out of Jessica's mouth tumbled out. Kumasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head. Jessica, you shouldn't talk to her now. It's the same for me, and probably you as well, right, Battler-kun? We don't know what's going on, and it feels like our hearts are going to split open. There were tears in George Aniki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Seeing Jessica break down crying like that probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I'd done my crying all at once, so I didn't feel like crying anymore. However, I understood how great the pain in their hearts was. It's okay, Jessica. You'll be able to meet Canon again soon. Stop it! I don't need you trying to console me like that. Beatrice will resurrect the dead and even love that has been lost. So you'll definitely be able to meet him soon. Then everyone will be able to live in peace. So the one who killed Canon-kun is Beatrice, who supposedly gave you that letter yesterday. I want to see what the letter says. Please. Where is she? Where's she hiding? I'll find her and tear her apart. Tear her apart. Oh, she hit her. Tell me. You know who the culprit is, really, don't you? What do you know? What are you hiding? Tell me, damn it. Milady, please stop. Ugh! Ugh! Beatrice exists. Exists. Ugh! Damn it, let go of me, Genji-san. Maria knows who the culprit is, and she's hiding their identity even though she knows. She must be telling them what they're doing, guiding them as they kill us. Jessica, be silent. Jessica grabbed at Maria. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calmed. The next thing I heard was the sound of Aunt Natsui slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful, sobbing voice resounded throughout the hall. Maria-chan, I know there's no way you're the culprit. You've been with us since the beginning, and there's no time for you to communicate with any culprit. So I want you to tell me something. This Beatrice, who handed you the letter yesterday, who was she? Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had some remaining doubts about Maria. He actually didn't grab at her. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did. Anaki, I already asked her the same thing a second ago. Her answer was the same as before. I want to hear it from Maria's mouth. Who is Beatrice? Ellipses. Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe anyway. What do you mean by that? Could it be the culprit, someone we knew well, and you're keeping it silent because you're covering them for some reason? Who gave you that letter? I got it from Beatrice. I'll say it no matter how many times you ask. I got the letter from Beatrice. George Oni-chan, do you refuse to believe in Beatrice because she's not an opponent you can hit? You want to turn your feelings of helplessness into violence and beat someone up? So you won't be satisfied unless your opponent is a human you can hit? So even if I tell you the truth, you won't accept it. So it's pointless for me to tell you. You won't believe. But I'll keep on saying it because it's true. Beatrice exists. The door to the Golden Land will soon be opened. I'll go there. Beatrice promised. In that world, Mama is nice. Papa is with us and is also nice. I want to go there right away. Everyone is afraid of Beatrice, but that's only natural, so calm yourselves. Beatrice said so herself. By the time the typhoon is past, I'll have ended everything, she said. Ouch. Maria, I don't mind you being talkative, but let's leave it at that for now. I'll bet this is all a pretty happy situation for you, since you're always going on about how witches exist. But keep that to yourself for now. Don't try to force that on other people. Ugh. I know I've been creeped out by this girl for a while now, but there really is something wrong with her. Don't you think so too, Battler? Genji-san? Kumasawa-san? What about you, Mom? Maria knows who the culprit is, and she's hiding it. Okay, maybe she hasn't done anything directly, but she's definitely working with a criminal. That's right, she's a spy. We can't let her stay with us any longer. Maria-chan. You must realize that there are times when indiscreet discussion is best avoided. If you keep adding oil to the fire, even I will get very angry. Ellipses? Aunt Natsuhi glared at Maria with frightening eyes. Maria was used to Aunt Rosa's loud style of scolding, but she apparently hadn't built up a resistance to Aunt Natsui's quiet sort of scolding. She shrugged and kept her mouth shut. A desolate feeling entered the room. It felt as though things would get more complicated if anyone spoke. How many people have already died? Six people in Dad's group. After that, both Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi, Kanon-kun, grandfather. There was a whole 18 people on this island, supposedly, and 10 of those people have been killed. That's more than half of us. And right now, there's absolutely no proof that the remaining 8 people will be safe. At this rate, this is no time to quarrel. Now that we are certain the culprit can enter and leave the mansion at will and will strike out of nowhere, we must give our undivided attention to surviving until tomorrow. I agree strongly with Aunt Natsui. We can figure out who the culprit is at our leisure tonight. For now, though, we'd better find a place to barricade ourselves in. I don't really think that's going to do anything. As I pointed out the clock to everyone, it was already 8 p.m. at night. We had been receiving shocks over and over again since the early morning, and our bodies and minds were completely tired out. This shit's crazy. Dun, dun. This shit's so wild. There's still a long, long time until tomorrow. We needed to find some place to barricade ourselves in so we could rest our bodies again and get even the smallest amount of relief. I agree. Everyone is already pushing their mental and physical limits, myself included. I believe it would be wise to take that into account as we move forward. That's right. There's a high probability that the enemy's got the equivalent of a master key. Were Shannon, Cannon, and Goda holding master keys? Yes. They were supposed to have them on their person during work. We didn't want to disturb the scene, so we didn't investigate that closely. We can't eliminate the possibility that someone stole a key from them. In the first place, we know the culprit may have visited the servant room at some point to unlock the garden's shed's shutter, which I assume isn't going to be part of the master key. It's conceivable that they obtained a master key from there early on. There are many servants serving. Because of that, there were several master keys. Furthermore, every time one of the employees started finished working, the keys were passed between servants. We had to acknowledge that this had probably gotten a bit sloppy at times in the past. Even if they borrowed a bundle of keys from the pockets of one of the murdered servants, is there any safe place those keys couldn't open? Because of the nature of our jobs, we have been entrusted with the keys to all the rooms. All of them in the mansion and in the guest house. So in other words, no matter where we hole up and lock ourselves in, it'd just be pointless. Fine. Who cares about locking up? If you're gonna come, bring it on, damn it. I'll beat you at your own game. I mean, Cannon just swung and got stabbed and died. He didn't even stand a chance, the poor kid. Wow. The enemy won't approach us from the front. I don't know what about the first 6, but if we look at what happened to my parents and Cannon-kun, and even grandfather, the enemy has only gone after isolated people. They don't have the power to assault all of us openly in a secure room. That's right. It's just like Anaki says. And maybe Aunt Natsui's rifle can serve as a deterrent to stop them from attacking. I hope she's a fucking good shot. I hope that is so, but... Ellipses. Maria, I know you want to say something, but just keep it to yourself and shut the fuck up for a while. I ad-libbed that, but she deserves it. She's kind of being insane right now. Ugh! Maria probably wanted to say something about how the witches weren't afraid of things like guns. But if she were to say it out loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy. I had noticed and decided to put a stop to it. And if I may, I do know of just one place that cannot be entered, even with the servant key rings. The study. They're going to the study. Yep. Knew it. Absolutely knew it. Hold up, I had to watch this Instagram reel. Give me like 10 seconds. Okay. I just saw a video of somebody singing "I Can't Put Down the Cup" in front of LBJ's grave, and I had to. I'm against this. I don't even want to think about going in grandfather's creepy-ass room. How many keys can get access to that room? There are 2. I always have one on my person. The other was held by the master himself, but just now I found this on the corpse in the boiler room. Genji-san took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened it, showing us the burnt and filthy study key. Then he showed it alongside his own key, which he had once lent to Natsuhi. Normally, it would have been proper to leave Master's key for the police. But because of the Master's orders to protect the safety of the study, I borrowed it for the time being. I see. Oh wait, was that in dialogue? Okay, it was. I can't put down the cup. I can't put down the cup. Oh my lord. I see. Which means that Kinzo-san's study is the only place where we can be safe. It would appear that way. I don't even want to think about being shut up in a strange room all night. But it appears we must acknowledge that this room is safer than anywhere else right now. Even though Grandfather locked himself up in that safe room, the culprit brought him out and killed him. We can't be certain that it is truly safe. Well, freaking search the room. According to your theory, Grandfather cleverly found a way out that receipt around that receipt trick and left the room of his own free will. If so, the room might be a good place to barricade ourselves in after all. You're quite too optimistic, Aniki. However, at the same time, I thought he brought up a pretty interesting point. After all, this gives us a chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed door had been opened. If we assume the culprit used the same technique to kidnap Grandfather from his study, they'd have to show us the same trick again if they wanted to assault us in the study. And that'd give us a chance to make the culprit prove how much they... Just bring a fuck ton of food before you go. If she's really a witch, then we'll be forcing her to use her little magic trick to open the door right in front of us. Beatrice cannot put down the cup. She refuses. She's sipping her promethazine. She's going crazy. She can't put down the cup. That's probably impossible. If you spin the chessboard around, it's obvious the culprit is acting in a way that'll make us think they're a witch. Did he just... Yeah. If she really is a witch, all she's got to do is appear in front of us and wow us with her colorful display of magic. Since she's avoided doing that, everything must be the work of a fake witch who wants us to think she's real. Therefore, a culprit who used a technique other than magic to defeat the closed room couldn't open the door before our eyes. Is Grandfather's room big enough to stuff 8 people in? Yes. There's a bed, a sofa, and blankets. So while it's not luxurious, it will be more than suitable for spending the night. There's also a sink, a bathroom, a refrigerator, and a liquor cabinet. God knows you're going to need a lot of that. Whoa, that's incredible. But isn't that weird? You're saying he built another house inside his house. That's pretty cramped for the last house of someone like our grandfather, who bought a whole island and realized all his dreams. Ellipses, that's right. After some point in time, Father probably couldn't even feel at peace in any other place, even inside the mansion. We always sneered about how he shut himself up in there, and this time we're the ones who are going to be shut ourselves up in there. Ourselves in there. Reading's very hard, Geno. Dong. Dong. Alright. Jessica spat the words out. Jessica-chan, It sounds like he'd rather go search for the culprit than stay shut up somewhere. Of course, I don't think we'll be able to find them if we just start searching on our own. In the end, we can't do anything but wait. And it doesn't matter where we wait, does it? I'm not gonna run away or hide. Why don't we just take it easy in the parlor, watching TV or something while we wait for Beatrice-sama to appear? It's perfectly fine if she doesn't appear. There's no need for us to be the ones who expose the culprit. Well said. We shouldn't take needless risks before the police arrive. She's so freaking ready with that Winchester. Thank you, Dr. Nanjo. I think we should move to Father's study. True, we have no proof that it's safe, since Father was taken up there. However, I can't deny the possibility that, as Batlo-kun reasoned, Grandfather left the study of his own accord and was attacked outside. A while back, I proposed that strange theory as a stopgap measure. But just as Aunt Ava said, even though that trick would be possible, I couldn't explain what motive could have made Grandfather seek out of his own study in such a troublesome way. Plus, Grandfather couldn't even have used that trick unless he knew the receipt was wedged in the door. That is true. I never considered that. That is actually very true. Aunt Ava hadn't pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd the theory was. So does that mean the sealed door formed a closed room just as Aunt Ava claimed? Is it an undeniable fact that Aunt Natsuhi was the culprit? Unless there's a 19th person working with Aunt Natsuhi, then no. Because elsewise she's totally buddy systemed up. If Aunt Ava were here now, she'd probably make that claim openly and blow my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet that all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, had to be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than just staying shut up in the parlor and hoping nothing would go wrong. Wait, have we been safe only because we've been shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moving on to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? It's useless. It's useless. It's all useless. My flimsy head is about to break out in a fever. If I keep spinning the chessboard around, right and wrong will keep switching places over and over, and I won't be able to believe anything. When it seems like the culprit is one of the 18, I want to believe in Beatrice. And once I start believing in Beatrice, I want to find the culprit amid the 18. Dong. Unfortunately, the idea that that one of the people isn't actually dead is kind of a crackhead theory. How far back in the past was that Kyrie? He hasn't even considered the fact that his father told him he was gonna die that night. He hasn't even, that hasn't even really crossed his freaking cabeza. Not even once. How far back in the past was it that Kyrie-san taught me about that chessboard thinking? The concept of examining the situation by spinning it around and thinking from the enemy's side. I seem to remember being so interested by it back then. I used it to guide all my thinking. By the way, Kyrie-san was Dad's co-worker back then. They already told us that. I never dreamed that she'd someday be added to our family. Didn't Kyrie-san tell me something once? I get the feeling she once said that while this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things, it certainly wasn't all powerful. And it wouldn't be good to rely on it too much. Chessboard thinking. It's my own interpretation of something called game theory. Please don't explain game theory. Please don't. I'll skip it. Oh my gosh. Yep, I'm very familiar with game theory. They did teach it to me in college. They taught it to me in high school, middle school, high school, and college. I don't need it again. It's a very interesting subject, so you should tackle it yourself when you get into college, Battler-kun. I really want to try it. If I could study and perfect my chessboard thinking, then it'd be fun to be able to read into any opponent's moves, wouldn't it? But you can't believe in it blindly. He's literally about to draw like the axes of the game theory, and like it's all economics and ugh. But you can't believe in it blindly. Game theory is a very deep and complicated subject. Chessboard thinking is just my interpretation that skims the surface of game theory. In order to thoroughly read your opponent's moves like you're imagining, you need to study your opponent. Additionally, while chessboard theory is convenient and practical, it isn't perfect. It has many weak points despite its convenience. Weak points? Yes. Chessboard thinking is founded upon game theory. When you thoroughly investigate game theory, it boils down to math. Do you know what the weak point of math is? It's noise. In math, when you write 1 + 1 = 2, that process will always result in 1 + 1 = 2 no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there's absolutely no noise mixed in. But for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji are a very good example. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by the changes between time periods. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. Because of the rules of chess are fixed, when a pair of experts are discussing one particular layout, it's possible they could reach the same conclusions, whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible that a discussion about some layout would have changed as well. That's right. Events in the world of humans are normally full of noise. Aren't human emotions that way? Even if the exact same thing occurs more than once, there's no guarantee that humans will always act in a predictable fashion. The moment we try to use math based on theory to predict someone's actions, we must be aware that theory is built in weaknesses and limits. Simply put, chessboard thinking is extremely weak against noise and fickleness, as well as mistakes or incorrect knowledge. And I already theorized that maybe killing Cannon was not intentional. Like, that just seems possible to me. Like, I don't think if Cannon had followed that person that they would have been killed necessarily. I don't know, that's just my thought. That's right. Kairi-san definitely said that. Chess has always been a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight with the same conditions for victory. That's why it's possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It's possible to read your opponent because you can always suppose they'll make the best move they can find. But what if your opponent is fickle or a bit tired and makes a move that can hardly be called the best? Or what if this game actually has a special rule, some unknown thing that only the enemy knows about and can use? It's called en passant. In fact, what if the other opponent actually has some goal other than victory? Think from your enemy's perspective. That's the basis of chessboard thinking. I don't think Beatrice is playing chess. I think she's playing like a super complicated board game. Oh, that was such a Massive media analysis. Oh my gosh. Which means if you misread your enemy, the answer you draw from this process will be complete rubbish. Useless. So far, I've used the chessboard theory to guess several vague bits of information about the culprit hiding behind this case. Or so I think. However, I don't know anything about the culprit. Am I just playing around in a labyrinth of thought? If Kairi-san were here at a time like this, she'd probably be able to notice something with her much sharper thinking ability. Until the very last moment, Jessica resisted moving into Grandfather's study. But in the end, Aunt Natsuhi persisted, and we decided to move there. Everyone was completely wrapped in paranoia by now. I would be freaking absolutely in psychosis. Jeez. Kumasawa had prepared dinner at one point, but during the time we were discovering the deaths of George Anaki's parents, both the kitchen and the parlor had been left empty. Someone suggested that the food might have been poisoned while they were gone. Because of the poison? Really? Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa-san had taken the trouble to make for us. The man... I don't like when when you get the red text. That shit freaks me out. This freaks me out. Certainly that would allow even a single person to carry out the murder of 6 large adults. Furthermore, this idea made it easy to imagine there was only a single culprit, one who'd be afraid of Aunt Natsui's rifle. And this was very good for our emotional stability, I bet. Wait till they find the cult underneath this place. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But the fatigue and hunger were even harsher than we'd imagined. Then Kumasawa made a proposal, and we all went together to the kitchen. There, we gathered some canned food and some other things that'd be hard to poison to take with us. All of Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us just a little dinner on this savage day regrettably came to nothing. The food piled up on the serving cart looked just a little sad. We started climbing the stairs. Aunt Natsuhi, who was in the lead, warily stared into the darkness with both eyes in the barrel of the gun. Once we dragged ourselves up the 3rd floor, just as Aunt Natsuhi had warned us beforehand, there was a mixture of chemical smell and a sickly sweet aroma, a stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating at our heads. Ugh. Alright. I see. This kind of stench probably would give you a headache if you were shut in with her a whole night. I know it's a little late, but I'm with Jessica. I vote against going into Grandfather's study. It felt like the stench was floating out of this magnificent door. It was the door to the forbidden study, which should defend against any who would enter. While Genji-san unlocked the door, Maria stared at the door and the doorknob with great interest. Ugh! Incredible door. It looks old and strict and like it'd stop any jokes cold. A perfect door for grandfather's study. The power to ward off spiritual menaces is strong here. Beatrice probably couldn't open this door. Oh? What does that mean? Maria pointed at the doorknob. A scorpion crest. No, a design like a magic circle arranged around a scorpion was inscribed there. That design. That's right. Isn't it just like those keychains Maria gave us Jessica and me yesterday? The fifth magic circle of Mars is a strong word against magic. Additionally, this magic circle is very diligently constructed and is full of power. Such magic circle can be quite troublesome to beings of magic like Beatrice. Isn't that comforting? Are you saying we can escape even Beatrice's clutches in this room? Our little witch here sure is reliable. Then how did Beatrice get grandfather out? Because he loves her. Because he's probably the grandma. Just as Battler reasoned, Beatrice can't go inside. However, she has both magic and familiars. Using them, she might have been able to get grandfather to leave the study of his own accord. Ah, I've already read about that in manga. I've seen a bunch of scenes where vampires were frightened of crosses so they wouldn't get close. But their familiars were just fine, so they made their familiars attack. Those scorpion keychain charms I gave you yesterday also had a fifth magic circle of Mars on them. But they should be enough to protect you until we leave the island. Although it sounds like you've lost yours, right? Scorpion keychain charms. Yeah, the charm I gave you yesterday was something I got from Maria. I heard it would repel magic if you put it on your doorknob. At the time, I maybe thought it'd be better if you had it. Is that so? I thought it was an odd thing for you to be carrying around. Aunt Natsui put that on her doorknob? Yes. Last night, after hearing about it from Jessica, I hung it on the doorknob on the inside of my door. Then Aunt Natsui, you're really fortunate. If you did that, Beatrice probably couldn't even lay a finger on you yesterday. I think Beatrice must have been really annoyed. Beatrice, annoyed? Couldn't lay one finger? Natsui thought back to the eerie scribble she'd seen in the morning, as though someone had been tearing at the outside of the door with blood-soaked hands, and gasped in surprise. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice tried to enter through the door of Natsui's own room? But the magic-repelling charm had been hanging from the inside, so she couldn't break through the door. She was annoyed, so she scratched at it. Quit it, don't talk about that. Witches don't exist, the culprit does, and they're human, just like us. If you need proof, why don't we dice her up and see if her blood's red? Damn it! How could you do that, Canon-kun? Click. Genji unlocked the door. 8 people entered Kinzo's study. Grandfather's study. I'd heard rumors about it beforehand, so I wasn't that shocked. Whoops, did I miss something? He had done nothing more than fortify it thoroughly with his occult hobbies. If grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pop idols, these walls might have been buried beneath idol posters. He would have loved Michael Jackson. Even if I didn't understand it, I did realize that this room was a bundle of all his pastimes. Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of this creepy medicine and sweet stench that seemed to melt my head. They're going to find a secret door in here, I guarantee it. Alright, they just locked the door. But I swear they're gonna find a secret door. When the door was closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see. This is the auto lock that's activated whenever the door is closed. And there was only 2 keys that could open this door from the outside, both of which were in this room. In other words, it had become a closed room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now the auto lock. This 4th door had the most magnificent lock yet, and this was doubtlessly a closed room. Freaking search it first, please. Just search it. Just to make absolutely sure the room was secure, we checked all over for ways in or out. The window was tightly locked. That should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking all over the walls. Oh, to try to find a hollow space? Yeah. After all, we talked about there being a hidden door in this room. But we couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather, aren't you supposed to like roll the marble, and if the marble rolls to the door, it's like a safe room? We're gonna find the Kinzo panic room someday, I swear to God. And when we do, it'll be freaking absolutely bananas. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though we called it a study, it really wasn't a single room. It had a little kitchenette too. That's awesome. It can be divided into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet bathroom section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see. The study really does have enough in it to live in. Now I see how Grandfather could live his whole life in this room without ever leaving. It seemed like Grandfather was in the habit of watching TV, because there was no television or even a radio in this room. We can't do anything except pass time listening to the sound of rain until tomorrow morning. Dr. Nanjo looked closely at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently the partly finished chess match that he'd been playing with Grandfather until yesterday. The black had the white pretty well cornered, and it looked like that checkmate could be reached within a few moves, the last part of the endgame. Even though checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and in the end, it was never completed. Kinzo-san, it seems we weren't able to see this match through after all. Dr. Nanjo, I was Kinzo-san's friend for a long time, but I never knew more than half of him. I believe 2 Kinzos existed. A wise one, and one trapped by some madness. I never understood anything about him, especially when it came to Beatrice-sama. It would seem like his personality changed. In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It wasn't massive like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room, and so much of his time, talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice to Grandfather in the first place? Right now, you couldn't just explain it away by saying it was a story made by the parents to frighten children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we brought from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself or someone pretending to be her. Whether they were a witch or a human, that was beside the point. The woman in this portrait was strongly related to the roots and backgrounds of the case. You couldn't talk about this case without talking about her. Read the letter! Holy fucking shit. That's right. Mom, you picked up the culprit's letter. Oh yes, finally! In Aunt Ava's room, right? Yes. I still haven't opened it. Let's give it a try. Aunt Natsuhi took out that western envelope. Genji-san pulled a paper knife out of the drawer in the study desk and handed it over to her. Oh, that's fancy. While watching her open it, George Anaki grimaced slightly. After all, it was the letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered. Right? It did take a while. I would have read that shit like as soon as possible. There was a good chance its contents would say something unbearable to Anaki. Aunt Natsuhi also seemed to realize that, so she glanced over the contents first without reading it aloud. We were a little frightened that she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily. What does it say? There's one unpleasant sentence. It must be trying to provoke us. Natsuhi, after deciding that its contents should be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at it at the same time. Praise my name. What the hell? That's annoying. It's probably declaring herself... I'm gonna read through the letter real quick again. The first letter. Oh, shit. I don't think... I, Beatrice Lankizo Gold. Termination of contract. Do you hear this? Me feel Kinzo's savagely ruthless. Did append a special clause. Beatrice. They gotta try to find the gold. Oh my gosh. This is tricky. Oh wait, I also need to... Okay. That's hilarious. It's probably Beatrice declaring herself the victor. Damn it. I'll bet you were hoping another weird magic circle would show up. It wasn't a magic circle, but my expectations haven't been betrayed. What could it mean? I wonder if she wants to tout her own existence. That seems reasonable. But this letter... we now know that the author of last night's letter is the culprit. I think the identical envelope is more significant than what is written here. Without a doubt, this is the type of envelope in sealing wax that the master used. Ooh, I don't know what's going on anymore. This is the first time I've seen anything like this since I started working for the Ashira Miya family. Going by last night's letter, Beatrice is claiming to be grandfather's oldest confidant. Grandfather often said the same thing in the past, right? I spoke to Genji-san and Kumasawa-san, who nodded together. Guess that means you two know more about her than anyone except grandfather. Could you tell us? For a long time, I've purposely avoided this topic, but now that it's come to this, I can no longer do so. Genji, tell us everything you know. Ellipses. Genji-san didn't answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge, or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been deified amongst the servants. He had probably been very close to grandfather in his occult hobbies. There was a good chance that he'd been indoctrinated with even weirder things and had been increasingly come to deify the witch. As grandfather's most trusted servant who had sworn loyalty to him, he might be the most influenced by the illusion of the witch that grandfather had created. So there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could speak, but it would definitely cause a backlash, so it would be better to keep his mouth shut, and it wasn't like we'd believe him anyway. Something along those lines. A short while ago, Maria was more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly, and that had earned her a scuffle with Jessica. It was only natural for Genji-san to keep his sacrifice. Was she father's concubine? Oh? His concubine. That could be possible. For ordinary poor people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively from a moral perspective, it's also an unmaintainable financial situation. But that isn't a case of the very rich. It's possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real wife. She was a guma! We can't deny the possibility that grandfather had another woman in his life besides grandmother. Maybe. When grandmother was alive, I hear she was pretty sure of it. She thought he was cheating on her. I always figured she meant a witch that grandfather had imagined up. But now this is getting really interesting. You told me, didn't you, Genji-san? You say Beatrice has been working for grandfather since before the mansion was finished. I hear that the construction of the mansion was completed in Showa 27. I think we're in Reiwa right now. Yeah, we're in Reiwa 6, I suppose. Yeah. This shit's so freaking wild. That'd mean that this person called Beatrice was in a relationship with grandfather since at least 30 years ago. Could that concubine of 30 years ago, or maybe a relative or a hidden child with that person, hold some kind of grudge and be planning revenge? A secret Ushiramiya? That'd be freaking... Secret Ushiramiya. I see. This is starting to sound like your standard Western mansion mystery. It's a filthy topic, the easiest line of reasoning to accept. What do you say, Genji? I believe the master was indeed in love. Those feelings were certainly stronger than what he felt for his late wife. Who is this person called Beatrice? And what's she doing now? I have heard that she passed away before the mansion was completed. She's already dead? Yes. The master was deeply stricken by grief, and he devoted himself to the art of black magic as a means to revive her. That master had loved Beatrice-sama from the bottom of his heart. It was the madness which drove him to do all that you see here. As Genji-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at this room filled with the signs of grandfather's madness. We were all at a loss for words. Normally, black magic seems like it'd just be creepy, and it's really hard to imagine why someone might be enraptured by it. Since Kinzo was just an eccentric who had restored the Yoshiramiya family amidst his madness, nobody had tried to understand him. The only thing on grandfather's mind had been the loss of a beloved woman, and his inescapable sorrow. Earlier, this room had seemed creepy, but in an instant, it had changed into something we could understand completely. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. It all existed simply because he wanted to revive the face of a single woman who had left this world over 30 years ago. The master only told me about Beatrice Sama's story once when he was very drunk. Although I have forgotten the details, it was a deep, deep love, enough to make a woman like me jealous. When Kinzo-san succeeded the headship of the Yoshirimiya family, his marriage to his late wife had already been decided by the few surviving family elders. So, he was forced into a marriage with some woman who would benefit the Yoshirimiya family? That is correct. Kinzo-san was installed as the head who would revive the family and had to bear the entirety of that heavy responsibility. I do not pretend to know the details of when or where Kinzo-san first met Beatrice. Guess it'd be rude to say more than that. That was when grandfather truly fell in love for the first time. Just how deep was his affection for her? That was easy to see by looking around us. This room was covered with piles upon piles of things having to do with black magic. And grandfather spent every day shut in here, immersed in his research and isolated from the outside world, never regretting 1 minute of it. You couldn't help but recognize the depths of grandfather's love for Beatrice. Ellipses. I had it all wrong, Genji-san. What do you mean by that? I always thought that maybe you servants believed blindly in the witch because you've gotten brainwashed by grandfather. It's raining outside my window and it fits Umineko very well. I'm jealous. I really want some rain, but it's been a while. Got brainwashed by grandfather and his creepy black magic stuff. But that's not how it was, right? Had they been soothing grandfather's tortured heart, acting as though Beatrice's soul had at least have been restored and existed inside this mansion. Damn, it was like his own little Taj Mahal. Though Genshi-san closed his eyes, wearing the expression of one remembering the distant past, he said nothing further. He probably felt that making such a confession would be the worst sort of betrayal against his one and only master, even though that master was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch and exists in this mansion even now. Genji had said this, had believed it, had made people believe it, and he would follow through with that decision to the grave. This might not have been the last service he could offer up to his master. The legend of the witch, the mysterious tale of Rokanjima that was still whispered amongst the servants. Its true nature was a sad lie. No, it was an act of kindness towards grandfather, who had lost the person he'd loved above all else. Ellipses. I remember denying the witch's existence in front of father on multiple occasions. Now I finally understand how much that must have wounded him. Right. No, I can understand very well. If I thought I could revive Shannon using black magic, oh my gosh. I'd immediately become the next owner of this room and start researching. Aniki. Another strand of tears dripped from George's eyes. Maybe his tears were infectious. Tears dripped from Jessica's eyes too, and she sniffled. Beatrice has said it. Very soon she'll be able to revive people. You'll be able to meet them, she said. Very soon the door to the Golden Land will be opened. In the Promised Land that glitters gold, the souls of all the dead will be resurrected, along with the love that has been lost. Then I will sleep in a world of peacefulness for all time. Did she say that? The Beatrice who gave you the letter? You don't believe me, do you? If only grandfather were here. I'm sure he'd be happy. I'm sure he'd be jumping for joy now that Beatrice is about to be revived. In that case, I believe... if grandfather gave up half his life for this research, trying to resurrect the soul of the woman he loved, and spending the rest of his life believing, I'll believe too. Battler, when you love a single woman for so long, the people around you catch on to it, and it becomes the truth. Maybe you could say that they're just being polite for the sake of your feelings, but right here, now, I'd like to call that magic. It isn't just being polite. It really is magic. She's a witch. It looks like nobody can see Beatrice after all. Some time passed, and we listened to the sound of the rain. We considered what kind of love and madness must have possessed the owner of this room as he spent half his life here. If you ask me as a woman, then, well, I'd like to be understanding of father's feelings of true love. It did leave mother in an awkward position. I agree. Cheating is cheating. No way to make it pretty. Yeah, that's right. Gotta feel sorry for Grandma. So, have there been any rumors about a child between Beatrice and grandfather? That would be absolutely freaking wild if there was more Shiramias that we don't know about. The keyword Beatrice has been hidden in every corner of this case, so it's natural to suspect some relative of hers. No, I have not heard anything like that. If there was one, a memento of his most beloved person, he would have given them all his affection. Okay, so he's denying it. Since he ended up immersing himself in black magic instead, maybe we should assume that there was no such child. Come to think of it, that reminds me of a rumor I heard. You know, right? The story about how grandfather heavily supported an orphanage called the Fukuin House? Enough of that. There's nobody from the Fukuin House left. Shannon and Cannon are dead. So we don't even get to know about it from their first-hand perspective. Enough of that. There's nothing more than slander which would desecrate father. Tell us, Aunt Natsui. I think even you'd agree that this is no time to be hiding things from each other. It's a worthless story. Father made massive donations to an orphanage and had the orphans employ the servants at the head family to give them some on-the-job experience. The story in question is simply some drivel spread by fools who claim that Father was using those orphans for some filthy hobby. Oh my fucking god. He's freaking Kenzo Epstein. Okay. For a while, some guys even said he was collecting human sacrifices for his black magic. He really is doing weird experiments and ceremonies in his room all the time, so I half believed it myself. And these servants who came from the Fukuin house are... There are several of them, but Shannon and Cannon were the two scheduled during the family conference shift. To resurrect Beatrice, he brought in servants from an orphanage as human sacrifices. After all, everyone grandfather selected as a servant was young, about the same age as Shannon or Cannon. I was sure it was because grandfather had some bizarre hobby. Jessica, mind your words. When Aunt Natsui scolded her, the atmosphere instantly went sour and everyone fell quiet. However, something was tugging at the back of my mind. Sacrifices. Human sacrifices brought over from an orphanage. What is it? Freaky words like sacrifices don't pop up often. And yet I've seen or heard that word recently. Some part of my memory is tugging at me. Hey Beatrice, do you know? I'd arrived in front of the portrait of Beatrice. It wasn't as massive as the one in the entrance hall, but that portrait, which must have been drawn by some famous painter, was just as intimidating at this smaller size. below it, just like the entrance hall, was the epitaph that supposedly hinted at the location of the hidden gold. Ah, sacrifices. Here. What the hell, Battler? You're creeping me out. 6 sacrifices. Ah! Both of my eyes were as wide as plates. Everything had been predicted right here from the very beginning. Everyone crowded around, and the same expression of shock rose to all our faces. That's right. It's right here in their epitaph. On the first twilight, offered the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. There's no doubt 6 people died in the beginning. And even on the shutter where the magic circle was drawn, where the Hebrew was written, it mentioned the offering of sacrifices. Ugh! I've been saying this from the beginning. That's right, Maria said it all from the start. Right after we found the 6 bodies, when Maria was in the parlor watching TV, she said it. Ugh! The culprit isn't human. It's just the sacrifices chosen by the key. This has nothing to do with the location of the hidden gold. It's the instructions for a resurrection ceremony using black magic or something. After all, this epitaph requires a large number of deaths. It sure does. Even reading through it quickly, there'd be 6 plus 2 plus 5, 13 people who must die. Please let it be 1, 2, 3. Please let it be the 3 servants who die. This shit's so freaking wild. How many people are normally on this island? It changes depending on the shifts for the servants, but there's father, my husband, Jessica, and me. And 2 or 3 servants. Today and yesterday there were 5 of them, but there aren't normally that many. Which means that normally, there wouldn't be enough sacrifices to carry out this ceremony. No, wait. There's that rumor that grandfather was collecting servants from an orphanage to be used as sacrifices for some creepy ceremony. So does this mean he increased the number of servants to increase the number of sacrifices and waited for the annual family conference when even more people would gather? Isn't now the only time of the year when this ceremony could be held? When Jessica screamed this, Maria broke out in a creepy laugh, truly pleased. Haven't you heard of people making bets to test their fate? Like throwing a sandal and saying that if it lands right side up, tomorrow will be sunny. Or saying that if tomorrow will be a good day if a coin lands heads up. There are many little superstitions like that. Sometimes when your luck is down and you get bored and you roll the dice and get 3 6s, you want to believe it's a portent of some miracle. When flipping a sandal, you have a 50% chance. Even if you get it right side up, it's not worth much. But if you carelessly roll 3 dice and they all come up to 6, you might think that's a miracle. I just think that chance is like 6 factorial, I don't know. Magic works the same way. You must pay earnestly for an extremely unlikely result. Then, the feelings from all those stored up prayers gain magical power and become incarnate. The magic grandfather was trying to perform was probably like that. The key randomly selected sacrifices in a lottery. So, to reduce the chance that he was himself was selected, he chose the day with the greatest number of people on the island to carry out the ceremony, and his dumbass still lost. Ridiculous. Are you saying that this entire situation was caused by a mere ceremony for some bizarre magic? Not so he yelled. She couldn't quite fear the scorpion. She couldn't quell the fear that a scorpion charm might be the only reason she is still safe. And there's someone else. That would have made 11, so that means there still would have to be 2 more people who had to die. hadn't if I hadn't received the charm from Jessica and hung it on my doorknob, would I have been killed mixed along with those 6? The strangest part is, even though I hung the chain inside my door, they couldn't get through that door. The culprit noticed the charm from the outside the door and gave up trying to open it. A human couldn't have perceived that. A charm meant to stop something that was not human. Had it done exactly that? Impossible. Impossible, impossible. But Natsui-san. The epitaph certainly does continue to fit even after that. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. Could this be talking about Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama? Painful as it might be, we must reach that conclusion. And after that culprit killed them, they left the words from the third twilight in the letter there. That's right. After carrying out the second twilight, they left the third twilight in that place. The third twilight was just like Aunt Natsui had read. On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. Ah, if you read it this way, it just keeps going on, doesn't it? On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Gouge the head and kill. George Anaki's parents were killed with those demon ice picks gouged into their heads. But even if they were the second twilight, someone else must have been gouged in the head. That's grandfather. He burned in the incinerator, and our eyes were so drawn to that part that we didn't notice. But his forehead, no, his head had been gouged. Grandfather was the victim of the fourth twilight? And on the sixth, that's canon. Knee, leg, and chest. And then Canon-kun was, in the fifth twilight, gouged the chest and kill. We thought that Canon-kun's case was an unexpected encounter. Okay, I was wrong about that. I didn't even consider that part. I thought the murders had to happen all, like, according to the days, but from what they're implying, that's not true. From the very beginning, they planned to lure someone out alone and drive them something through their chest. If the culprit has followed the epitaph this far, does that mean 3 people still have to die? On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. Yes, you could read it that way. Well, I wonder about that. After those 3 die, it reaches the 9th twilight. Take a look. On the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive, and none shall be left alive. We're all gonna be killed by Beatrice. I don't get it. Wouldn't that mean everyone dies no matter how many people there are? What was grandfather after? Doesn't this mean the ceremony would kill him too, no matter what? It's okay if no one's left alive. On the 10th twilight, we finally arrive at the Golden Land. What does Roken mean? It means 6. Yes, 6 Island. On the 10th twilight, at journey's end, you shall attain the powers of the Golden Land's treasures once and for the last time. The witch shall praise the wise. Yeah, we never knew what twilight rich shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures. Grandfather wasn't afraid of dying. Look at the second and third of the 4 treasures. One shall be the resurrection of all the dead souls. One shall be the resurrection of the love that was lost. The love that was lost is going to be Kinzo and Beatrice's. So Grandfather believed he would eventually be revived, even if he died partway through the ceremony. Ridiculous. That's insane. When you die, it's over, right? The dead don't come back to life. Isn't that a miracle humanity's been chasing after for thousands of years and still hasn't accomplished? So what? So this is what it means? Something like you'll be able to meet him in the afterlife where they'll be restored? If that's what you're saying right now, does that mean that Grandfather, whose remaining life is slim, and who's been driven mad by love, is committing suicide? No, a massive forced group suicide. Genji, is such a thing possible? I don't know. The Master is a man who sometimes has the wisdom to see 1,000 years into the future. However, there are times when that appears to be nothing more than madness to commoners such as myself. Okay, should we take that for a yes? What do you say, Kumasawa-san? I don't know anything. That's right, I don't know. Do you think I would be on the island today if I did know? I would have faked an illness or done anything to take the day off. That's right. Jeez. What about your opinion, Dr. Nanjo? You've been Grandfather's friend for many years. I feel the same as Genji-san. Kinzo-san is a man who far surpassed ordinary people. I've even felt a sort of inhuman power from him at times. Even I don't know what Kinzo-san was thinking when he wrote that epitaph. All we can say is that even if Father did write this script, someone else is carrying it out. That's right. At the very least, there's another culprit who attacked Grandfather and Canon-kun. Furthermore, that person is still continuing the crimes just as the epitaph says. The letter is in the very beginning that we didn't think deeply about. What was it that was written there? We thought about the recitation of the letter last night. Beatrice had proclaimed something inside of it. She had proclaimed that, according to her contract with Kinzo, she would collect everything of the Ishira Miya family as interest. But then she also revealed a special clause. If someone had discovered the location of the gold Grandfather had hidden, that right would be lost. When the letter was read, Grandfather was still alive. But at that time, it had already been sealed with wax by the head ring. I love the wind and the rain, which meant Grandfather had handed over the ring to Beatrice while he was still alive. If we take a straightforward approach, maybe we should assume Beatrice is carrying out a strange contract with Grandfather. Caretaker, that right? In other words, this is the same as saying Grandfather knew of and approved the contents of that letter. In other words, it's basically a joint message from Beatrice and Grandfather, telling us that Beatrice will start collecting interest if we don't solve the riddle. Isn't that kind of crazy? They had like years to do this, and they didn't. In other words, Grandfather and Beatrice were demanding that we try to solve the riddle of the epitaph. And if we couldn't, they were saying that a massacre would be carried out according to the epitaph. What does that mean? What do they want? I don't have a clue what it means. Look, another letter from Beatrice. Huh? What did you say? Maria was pointing at the top of the table, where the canned food everyone had been eating just now still lay. A Western envelope from Beatrice certainly was sitting there, but so what? What in the... Aunt Natsui let out a hysterical cry, looking between her own hand and the table. There's another envelope. Because the envelope she had just opened was still grasped in her hand, so why was there still an envelope on the table? What the fuck? What's going on here, Maria? Where did that envelope come from? Just now, I looked and it was lying there. Ugh! I don't know anything. This isn't funny. There's only the 8 of us here. There's no way some 9th person snuck in. There wasn't enough during the few seconds that we gathered around the portrait, right? Open the letter. Whoa! Whoa! Get back, all of you. Back against the wall. Aunt Natsu is pointing the rifle at Genji and the others, bellowing at them. Genji-sama was overpowered, his face looking like he didn't have a clue what was going on. Of course, I felt the same, but a few moments late, I had reached the same conclusion that Aunt Natsui had. Until just a few seconds ago, there had been no letter like this on the table, and nobody entered this room. That means someone among us had placed it there, during the few seconds when everyone was looking away, preoccupied with the portrait. Battler-kun, open that envelope and read what's inside. Sure. I picked it up. It was still sealed with wax. Even without disturbing its contents, I realized it was a yet unopened envelope, an unknown envelope. Without replying on the paper knife, I tore it open and pulled out the letter inside. The contents were as follows. Are you enjoying the riddle of Kinzo-sama's epitaph? As you all probably are aware, you have very little time remaining. Please abandon any naive hopes of escaping after the storm passes. This game can only end with my victory or yours. When time runs out, I will win by default. There will be no ties. Make sure that you do not misunderstand your current situation. And we get it as a tip. That's what it says. It isn't clear who put this letter there. However, I will be able to narrow it down to the list of suspects. It's you all. Madam, that's just too horrible. Just before I moved towards the portrait, I set down a can of food down here. That time, there definitely wasn't anything as strange as this letter there. And at that time, Jessica, George, and Battler-kun were already in front of the portrait. And they didn't even leave the spot in front of the portrait until the letter appeared. So the person who set that letter down is one of you 4. Beatrice is here. Ugh. We aren't Beatrice. Beatrice exists. Silence. I don't... Bro, she's 9. And she pumped... Oh my gosh. I don't know whether I should suspect one or all of you. But without a doubt, at least one of... Man, my beard is getting really long. I really need to trim my beard. Without a doubt, at least one among you is the culprit. That's right. There can't be a 19th person. There's no way the witch exists. Even when Cannon was killed. Yeah, that could have been explained if Kumasawa-san was the one who did it. The truth is, Kumasawa entered the boiler room with Cannon and killed him. And then she lied, saying she had already fallen. She had already fallen when she got there. You're making a mistake, milady. Why would I do something like that? I don't have the slightest idea how many parents were killed in that closed room. But when they were killed, everyone except the servants had an alibi. Only ones who didn't were the servants. But does that really mean it's okay to suspect them? Yeah, now that you mention it, they have no alibi for any of the cases. Should we really be so quick to make that judgment? By this time, in this room, in this place, in this moment, in this minimally small bit of time and space, it's obvious. Only one of the four of them could have set the letter there in our blind spot. We can't tell who put it there, but it's obvious that one of the four did it. Natsui-san, please calm yourself. A lot has happened today. I understand how much strain this is on your mind right now. Dr. Nanjo, it truly pains me to call you suspicious. However, you are father's personal doctor and his closest friend. You've been by his side for many years, and you might even know about Beatrice. Could you be hiding some kind of old obligation? Of course not. Calm yourself. It was pitiful to watch Dr. Nanjo frantically pleading his innocence. It was probably a normal reaction that anyone would give if they were suspected. Kumasawa was the same. Ever since Jessica voiced her suspicion of Kumasawa murdering Cannon, Kumasawa had been totally flustered. That was why Genji's still calm appearance looked so bold. Aunt Natsui pointed at the barrel of the gun. Genji, you were grandfather's #1 subordinate. Was Beatrice an illusion you showed to father with you as the performer? If by suspecting me, you recognized me as the master's greatest servant, I count it as an honor, regardless of the circumstances. However, I am not the one who put the letter there. Do you just expect us to accept that? You must be the ringleader. Maybe Kumasawa and Dr. Nanjo are your accomplices. And Maria-chan, too. Not content to suspect just the adults, Aunt Natsui pointed the gun relentlessly at Maria, too. But Maria acted as though nothing had happened. Or maybe she thought that she would be fine even if she was shot. Maria-chan, by this point, we can no longer remove someone from this suspicion just because you're young. For the last time, let me ask a question everyone had since last night, yesterday. Who was the Beatrice that handed you that letter? Ugh! Maria, don't dodge the question. Make it clear. Who gave you that letter? How many times do I have to tell you? It's Beatrice, the 1,000-year-old golden witch. If you wanted to know what she looks like, just turn around. See, she's right there. Beatrice is. Don't mess with us, Maria. Nuss, Jessica. Maria, too. Don't you understand the situation? What are you hoping to gain by saying stuff like that? Stop staring each other up pointlessly. I don't understand. Who do you all want the culprit to be? You only believe in Beatrice when you don't want to suspect one of your own. When you're trying to settle a grudge because someone as close to you has been killed, only then do you want to believe in a human can attack with violence and deny Beatrice. That's why you can't see her. Beatrice exists. You all can't see her. Silence! I don't want to label you as the culprit, but there's no longer any doubt that you enjoy making this situation unpleasant and are providing assistance to the enemy. Then what will you do? Shoot me? I don't mind. Very soon the doors of the Golden Lane will be opened. Then all the dead will be resurrected. Right now, death is nothing to be afraid of. Mom, she really is suspicious. We can't keep her with us. Aunt Natsui, please calm down. There's no reason to shoot Maria. Please remain composed. The letter was meant to provoke us, but it's nothing to be afraid of. Even the culprit is scared of what will happen tomorrow. They're not gonna kill a kid. They're scared of the police. Right now, if this island is free from the reach of the law, that's because it's isolated by this typhoon. Once this typhoon passes, the law will return. So you mustn't shoot. How can you say calm, George Nissan? One of these four is the culprit. No, maybe all four of them are working together. How can you stay calm when one of these four might be culprit who killed your parents? Even I have the desire to find the culprit and kill them. But that would be simple barbarism. I will leave the judgment of crimes to the law. So no matter how suspicious they are, you mustn't pull that trigger. I feel the same as George Aniki, Natsui. Get a hold of yourself for a second. Anyway, it'd be bad to shoot. In times like this, I hear you should tilt your head back and say, "Stay cool," 3 times. Let me make this clear. Witches don't exist. Not on Rokonjima, and not in the Yoshiramiya mansion. I declare it as Yoshiramiya Natsuhi, representative of the Yoshiramiya family. There's no witch here. I won't accept Beatrice. No matter what you're planning, I won't let you lay one finger on my daughter or the rest of them. That's my duty as a mother and as a representative to the family. Those words were the final words of farewell that settled everything. To protect her daughter, Aunt Natsui would regard any suspicious person. She should just freaking just kill everybody. I think that would just make things a little easier. The only reason George and I were standing on this side was because, by coincidence, we had a clear alibi regarding the letter. If I hadn't approached the portrait, I would also be at the end of that gun barrel, treated like a criminal. But even part of me thought that. Part of me was thinking that chasing all the suspicious people from this room would finally guarantee our safety. Genji-san and Kumasawa and Dr. Nanjo and all of them were on grandfather's side. Maybe you could say that once Maria started believing in Beatrice, she was also on grandfather's side. That's right, they're all suspicious. This is really okay? If we throw out all the suspicions once in such a lawless lay, will we still have the right to defy the lawlessness of the witch? That is true. I'll be right back. Alright. I'm back. Aunt Natsuhi didn't tell them to leave with her own words, but with wordless pressure, she induced them to say that themselves. Because if Dr. Nanjo didn't say those words, this cold silence would surely continue forever. Calm yourself, Natsui-san. So I understand your feelings as well. I feel like I feel myself like there's something wrong with my head after all these strange repeated incidents. So I understand why you would want to suspect us. If you really don't have nothing to do with this, then my actions now would be beyond rude. However, please understand just this once. Very well. Let's leave this room. What do you say, Genji-san? Shall we return to the parlor and continue our chess game? If that's what you wish, by all means. I don't want to. Uh, After all, that means we'll have to leave this room knowing that the wolf is among us, right? I don't want to, madam. Please forgive me. It was obvious what Kumasawa was trying to say. Even if she, I don't really care if any of the servants die. I just don't want any of the Ushir and Miyas to die. These four, if Maria can die too. She's being ejected into dangerous territory along with the culprit. In the current situation, urging her to leave this room along with the suspects was almost exactly the same as letting her get killed. However, Kumasawa-san was really suspicious just for being the first one to discover that Kanen-kun had been murdered. And that time, bro, she does not have the strength to freaking murk his ass. She really doesn't. She's not strong enough. She has lumbago. Plus, we know that she wasn't even in the room when he died. Well, I assume she wasn't. It was very heavily implied. Jeez, this is so nuts. In that time, everyone except Kuma... I have actually grown respect for freaking Natsuhi over time. I really didn't like her at first. But she is freaking standing on business so hard. At that time, everyone except Kumasawa-san had an alibi. Unless we could prove the existence of some contraption or the existence of some 19th person, Kumasawa-san was by far the most likely suspect. I didn't want to believe it. However, Aunt Natsui and the rest of us were in such a difficult situation that we couldn't help but suspecting her as well. Oh, shit. I fucked up my Streamlabs. Okay, to fix it. So we didn't say anything to stop Aunt Natsuhi from trying to oppressively chase them from the room. We stopped her from shooting, but we were passively agreeing to chase the others out of the room. On top of that, Maria spoke to the fretful Kumasawa-san. It's okay. Beatrice is kind to those who respect her. You believe that Beatrice exists, so it'll definitely be okay. I'll watch TV in the parlor. Let's watch it together. It's so boring here without TV. It looks like Kumasawa found Maria's roguish laugh very frightening. However, the other three people had agreed to leave the room. Kumasawa couldn't fight the flow and had to agree. crying as she went. Oh, I feel so bad for her. It's not Kumasawa. She is freaking lumbago. She's not killing anybody. Well then, Natsui-san. That will be all for tonight. Let us meet again tomorrow. Yes, please understand, at least for tonight. When the police come, all of us will surely apologize for our rudeness. You may play chess, but do it in a safe place if you can. Genji, I leave them in your hands. Certainly. Ho ho ho. It can't be helped, can it? They always say that the most frightening bears are those of children. Their children. Genji, Kumasawa, my sincere apologies. Let us meet again tomorrow. Maria-chan, too. Please forgive your cold aunt. Ugh! I forgive you. Ugh! I think she's gonna die because she freaking totally denied the existence of Beatrice. Madam, the keys to this room. I will hand both over to you. Genji-san pulled 2 golden keys from his pocket and handed them to Aunt Natsui. And I will also hand over my bundle of keys to the inside of the mansion. He took out a bundle of about 10 keys of various shapes and handed them over. For the servants, those keys were probably proof of their position. Being placed in charge of those keys meant they were trusted, relied upon. When they were forced to return them, it meant they had lost their trust. Thinking about it this way, to Genji-san, who had been working here for a span of many years, there could be no greater shame. However, Genji-san's usual indifferent expression remained on his face. Genji, I had planned that after father passed away, I would reward you for your many years of hard work and allow you to retire. To treat you like this makes me feel ashamed from the bottom of my heart. I have already received the master's favor. Everything I have done until today has been repayment for that. Please, do not worry. Well then, shall we, everyone? Good night to you all. Ugh. Good night. Good night to you too, Battler. Maria, wait a sec. The knowledge of guilt made me call Maria back. I groped around my pocket and took out that scorpion keychain. This repels magic, right? Wear it. Ugh. Didn't you say you dropped it? Back then, I got ticked off and just bluffed that I'd lost it. There's no way I'd lose the precious charm you gave me. Maria silently took the charm. I was unable to say anything after that. Well then, everyone, good night to you. You should give it to freaking Kumasawa, that freaking dumbass Maria. Who already doesn't care if she lives or dies. Like, I feel like she's like the last person who freaking deserves that shit. We watched them leave, our expressions completely worn out, and weren't even able to, if I were them, I would just freaking crash asleep. Until the door closed and we heard the auto lock, we were unable to breathe. Then we were finally allowed to take a breath. After that... Oh shit, they didn't even notice it had 2 sheets? The paper had been tightly stuck together, so I'd mistakenly thought there was only one. There were no characters on that second sheet. The thing drawn there was a magic circle, written with a red ink like blood. Just like how every magic circle up until then had been different, this magic circle was one I'd never laid my eyes on before. Inside the circle, a large triangle and a small triangle were fit together in a simple design. Just as before, there was writing in Hebrew, and it seemed clear that it held some kind of meaning. I wanted to know what it could be, but we had just chased Maria, the only person who could understand the meaning of the magic circles, out of the room. I thought of this magic circle as Beatrice's second message. What could this magic circle mean? Damn it! After chasing out all the suspicious people, all we had to do was stay barricaded here until morning and everything would probably be over. Once the typhoon has passed, when the seagulls cry, will everything be resolved? But the letter, which had unexpectedly arrived in the study, forced us to reject that naivete. It had made itself clear that if time ran out, it would mean the witch's victory. When time runs out, is the witch planning to take on the offensive? This time, is she planning to display some fearful magic power, maybe something that could have been used to kill 6 adults at once? Wait, when is time supposed to run out anyway? I don't know anything. With this, we should finally be safe. Finally. Definitely. Even as she said that, Aunt Natsui couldn't stop gripping that rifle. There was no release in the tension of her expression. Of course, none of us felt like breathing a sigh of relief. At least not until we could hear the cry of the seagulls once more. I think that's where I'm gonna stop. Like 6 hours of streaming today? Almost 7 hours of streaming? It is time to go. It is so crazy. I'm only on episode 1. Oh, thank you so much. I've been having a lot of fun with this game. Alright. Like I said, I'm gonna stream Monday through like Wednesday, and then I'm gonna be out of town. And I'll be back probably the next Monday. So I'm gonna try to get in as much of this game as I can as possible before I leave. Alright, well, see ya.